How did you get started into becoming FIFA letter and everything about football activities?
Well,
did you play football when you were young? Did you play for Benin City or what? Because this thing about you are football. So I want you to tell my guest.
I'm not like who says that I didn't play for Benin Insurance.
Everything about you and football, because we used to talk about football.
Yeah, we used to talk about football. I played football as a primary school child. When we'd come back from school when we lived in UBTH and we'll play football. In fact, we even played one as a Paco team called Ball Bomber. That's where it started. When I was in boarding, when I was in FGC Douani, I was in the supporters club. We used to go and watch football games. But I don't consider myself to be a football buff, like somebody who has an encyclopedic knowledge of football. I don't consider myself there are people who have more encyclopedic knowledge. In terms of how I got into it, I started my career in media, in magazines. My first ever job was as features editor for what was then True Magazine, which became Trace Magazine, which became Trace TV as well. So I started in media and then music and entertainment. That's how I started. I then co-founded the first ever awards for sports and development called the School for Africa Awards back in 2008, and which was actually a big deal, as it turned out, and wasn't particularly sure. But in terms of getting into the football business, being an agent, it's a professional thing. So, you have a professional, the FIFA license is a professional qualification. That's how it should be viewed. Not into FIFA changed the whole thing with intermediary and so on and so forth. But it's professional business. So I got into it, and to be honest, I also have to say that I became an agent, but how I got to where I got was through Osaze.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Odewinji. I like the guy, very popular.
Well, Osaze's mother and father, who are both doctors, went to university with my uncle, who also married a Russian lady.
So that was where the connection came from.
That's where the connection came from. And when we were in Government House, his mother, Auntie Raisa, used to bring him and Alsu, his sister, to Government House, as guests of my mum, sort of thing. So I just bumped into him in Rutan Mohammed Airport one day, essentially coming back from South Africa.
Okay.
And when I first knew him, he was 18 months. He wasn't, he was like a toddler. And we got talking, and we had a connection, and he not completely, but he I would say paved the way for me to meet lots of Nigerian players and other Premier League players, because the Premier League is tiny. First team players, it's 25 players per squad on average, times 20, so it's 500. About 10-15% of them are black. Of those black players, a certain high proportion are Nigerian. That was sort of my journey in football. I'm not going to bore you with the details of my journey in media.
No, I'm just really
media and music.
I'm kind of impressed, Okay, that's good. This next question.
So you got to ask what the challenges were as well?
No, I will come to that.
Okay.
We haven't get to that. As a football pundit and your experience in this terrain, just curious to know your perspective about my next question. Why do many African countries tend to fire their coaches after the end of a tournament, particularly if the team doesn't perform well in that tournament, rather than giving the coach time to build a rapport with the players? Yes, because like in Europe, you see a coach, countries say it will be there like 10 years, 5 years. But in Africa, especially our country, Nigeria, after a tournament, they'll just fire the coach. So I want you to get light on it.
Ken, fish not a bone foul. We can't expect African countries to behave any differently, or football federations in African countries to behave pretty much differently from the political situation, the general political situation. And
so, can't we learn? Can't we learn from? Are we going to
you don't have to ask me that. See, there are people in charge of the country and in charge of football who need to be asked that question and need to answer that question. The sports. I mean, if every time Nigeria doesn't play very well, the sports minister gets involved. We have the NFF are meeting the sports minister, so on and so forth. Have you ever heard in Belgium or here that
or in the UK?
In the UK that they will say that, oh yes, the minister had met as a headline. The minister had met with the federation, the FA people, and has said this, that, the other, so on and so forth. You've never heard that situation. So we need some of the little peculiarities aside. We need to be professional about it. It's not rocket science, to be completely honest. It's not rocket science.
Tell them.
Well, it's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
It's not rocket science.
So what should they do, please?
Well, okay, if you ask for my advice, if you ask for my view.
Your views, opinion.
Like I said, more professionalism. We need to stop. I always say, I use this adage. I always say, personally speaking, I don't mind if 11 players from the north, as a team representing Nigeria, win the World Cup. I will still be happy and still celebrate it. Whether they're from the north, whether they're from the east, whether they're Yoruba, whether they're all from the south, the middle belt, it makes no difference to me. It's football.
I remember one time the Nigerian Green Eagles, Super Eagles, then I think 9 of the players were from Old Benin State.
Yeah, but the point is that federal character does not win you football tournaments. It's about merit. In this day and age, it's about professionalism and merit.
Just like what the girls did in the basketball, the Nigerian.
Well, yeah,
they
played very well. But so it's about professionalism and merit. It's now a lot of it is scientific. There's a science methodology to it. The study of statistics, sports science, nutrition, good training, but most importantly, organization. The NFF, the Nigerian Football Federation, is badly disorganized. Is badly disorganized. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anyone or say, oh, it's this person's fault entirely, this person's fault. But it's badly disorganized. Get politics out of football would be a great start. Because, as you know, Ken, all football of I think it's 20 teams in the NPFL, only 2 or 3 of them are privately owned. The rest of them are owned by the state government. Why in 2024 a state government should be running a professional football club full of political appointees who make decisions not in the interest of the club, but make decisions in the interest, unfortunately, of their pockets. Now, not to say that everyone does that, but a lot, swimming against the current is very hard. It requires courage. So the thing, when we get beaten by England, we get beaten by teams who are generally more organized than we are. Like any other football team. Football these days, you watch football, it's about organization. It's a confluence of chess and physical. So it's a confluence of a mental, strategic game and a physical game, a physical battle on the field. Yeah, so that's probably why football is so popular. Then it's sexy, it's sport, there's lots of money. So it has a huge followership. The football business, there are lots of moving parts in the football business. So it's perhaps break it down into smaller sections. And another important thing is our football coaches and administrators perhaps having more empathy. So because you can't have a player who has pursued his dreams, gone to Europe, right? Gets fame, gets money, right? You can't expect him to be the same person that he was at 20.
Absolutely. Yeah.
When he's like, say 25, like in the Osimhen, for instance, this Finidi Osimhen thing. Yeah. You can't expect Osimhen now at 25, a superstar, to be the same person that he was at 17. And you can't, you have to, respect is reciprocal. I think is what I like to say about that, unless you question me about it directly more. And the government, the NFF needs to, not the government, the NFF needs to appoint a coach and back the coach. They should, in Nigeria, they should appoint an indigenous coach.
Just what this guy did, I think.
A Nigerian coach.
Westerhoff. No, we'll come to that. I'm not there. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, Westerhoff and Icom.
Icom really, yes, that direct. You're right. Support the guy and everything. Anything.
He has a 3-year contract, right? He has a 3-year contract. You set him in year 1. This is the minimum you should achieve. In year 2, this is the minimum you should achieve. In year 3, this is the minimum you should achieve. And then the coach would have to also. It's a negotiation between the NFF and the coach. The coach will also have to say, these are my minimum requirements as well. Yeah? So for instance, because I mentioned the Finidi thing, that for instance, the players have to get into camp at a particular day. Right? They can't be late for camp. And that has to be enforced.
Absolutely, you're right.
So it's discipline. It's discipline, it's professionalism. It's all the cliches that you talk about what needs to win a football game. It's like I said already, it is not rocket science. It's sports science. Some of that sports science, some of it's psychology. I'll give you a great example because we're talking about managers. Zidane was asked, would he manage Manchester United? And he basically ruled himself out. You know why he ruled himself out?
Why?
He said he doesn't speak English good enough to communicate effectively with the players. Because a manager's job, 80% of it is communicating with NFF, that's one part of it, communicating with your players, communicating with your technical staff, so the whole team, not just the 11 men on the pitch or the 23 men or 15 men in the squad, 23 men in the squad, not just them, the whole team, the physios, the fitness coaches, the goalkeeper coach, everybody, all our ships are sailing in the right direction, the same direction.
On deck to make it work.
Yeah. And a manager, when you take because remember, as a manager, you ultimately are responsible for performances on the field. If the team does not perform, much more than saying mea culpa, putting your hands up, you don't really have any. Football is a results business. If you don't get results within 6 months, then most likely you'll get sacked for non-performance.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, how would you rate the Super Eagles' performance in the 2023 AFCON tournament held in Ivory Coast in January of this year?
I think they performed very well. I mean, we were finalists, so that's a good performance.
But I saw some of the matches. I think they managed. I'm not a football.
There's a saying in football that you win tournaments by defenses. Defenses win tournaments. Now, the irony is that Super Eagles performed very well, got to the final, but they weren't playing the sexy attacking football that Nigerians demand and seem, to want. It seems to be a holy grail of Nigerian football. Yeah, but football, it's and the other thing is, as you can see, it's not just about talent. If you look at the talent in Nigeria's attack, Nigeria should be given 3-0 to every team they meet in Africa. The talent if you just take the attacking part of it, but it's not just about attack. It's built on the base of the defense. Yeah, and midfield who handle the transitions. Yeah, so it's not rocket science, like I said. It's like chess.
Okay.
Guardiola, who's the best manager of this generation, he'd make a formidable chess player. It's about managing resources.
The guy is good, eh?
The guy is very good. He's won the league in every league he's played in. Won the title in every league he's managed in. I don't know what else you could use to assess a manager's.
But being a good player doesn't automatically makes you a good coach.
Yeah, that's the fallacy. That's the fallacy that being a good player makes you a good coach. You know, for instance, because I've also worked in sales, the best salesman does not make the best sales manager. It's a professional thing. So the skills required to be a salesman are not the skills. They're not necessarily the skills you need to make an effective and good sales manager. Much less a visionary sales manager, for want of a better word, if you want to be that. So if you want to do that, good. So the idea that it must be someone who has played football, it helps if you play football, because you know the experience of playing 90 minutes in front of a crowd, which is it's not an easy thing.
Yeah.
You might probably know the implication of playing in front of an audience of 3 billion people, that sort of thing. But being a good player does not necessarily make you a good coach.
That's good. So what methods do you personally use to uncover talented players? You know,
What methods do I use?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes, scouts, agent, one manager. So how do you think I'm a good,
Do I think you can play football?
Yeah,
as a professional player?
Yeah, don't talk about my age. I'm not 18 or 20, but I think I still got the skills,
Okay, Louis, whatever you say, I'll take your word.
No, that's what I'm scared. I want to know, because I have boys that are like watching this program, watching Talk with you today. They want to really know.
That's a quite broad question, right? In the modern day, yeah, you have to use you can't go to every match, and okay, let me try and break it down into distinguishing what the different things do, because what an agent does is very different from what a scout does.
That's a very good one. So what's the difference? I want to know.
Okay, so a basic difference is a scout goes and identifies players playing across all the tiers, levels of football, right? So I'll give you an example. If a big Premier League team, right, or a country, will have, like England, an England scout will go and scout the opposition players. Go and see who's playing well, what they're doing in this, what their weaknesses are, what their vulnerabilities are, what shook them, all those things, where they make mistakes, where they correct errors, all those things. That's what a scout would do. An agent, actually, what's defined as agency activity is essentially doing the deal between either a player and a club, or a manager and a club, or a club and a club. Club-to-club transactions. That's what is defined as agency activity. There's a lot more to it. Clearly, it's managing people, managing relationships, communicating, all the things that are important in being an effective manager, being an effective, leader, are what you need as an agent. I will add to that you need empathy, you need integrity, and you need to be professional. So you need knowledge. You need to know what you're talking about. Yeah, because not a lot of people understand what you're talking about. Not a lot of people understand the finer points of it, the niceties. So you need. But back to the question that you asked was you look for people who scout, who identify raw talent. You look for people who what you're looking for in a player. You look for mental toughness. You look
speed.
The scout looks for the physical attributes, right? A scout it's a filtering process. So if a scout comes to you, you look at the player, speed, control, discipline, all the things that go to making a good player. That's what you look for. Skill and technique, passing ability, shooting ability, those are the things that you look for in a player. But that's on that level. The scout will look for it. You will work with a scout and say, please give me a report on this player, or tell me about. You ask them questions like, tell me about his speed, tell me about his or hers shooting accuracy. Is he a good passer of the ball? Are they comfortable on the ball? Can they keep the ball? Are they good defenders? Can they track with people? Can they tackle people? Do they have it's a whole array of things. Like I said, there's a lot of moving parts in football, right? An agent negotiates with the club on behalf of the player. A part of it is to insulate the player from the club. Because the negotiating with your employer can be very difficult. There's a power dynamic. As in negotiating with your employee, if you're a club, can also be difficult because there is a power dynamic and you need to be aware of it if you're going to negotiate successfully.
Okay, that's good. This one, what's your take on how technology has changed the game of football, especially with the introduction of VAR, video assistant referee? So what's,
Yeah, thank you for the question. I personally was never a massive fan of VAR, or never wanted the introduction.
Has it changed the game?
It has changed the game subtly, but it's also changed the game incredibly fundamentally as well. So, for instance, you can't. You have to wait for them to check your goal before you go and celebrate. So it loses some of. I said something on my show that VAR has certainly increased the drama of football, but it has decreased the spontaneity of it.
Yeah.
And also
during the last World Cup, also with African Cup of the AFCON too, that excitement, you just have to wait.
But at AFCON, one of the things I noticed about AFCON, the last AFCON, was that the VAR was handled really well. They made good decisions. It has not eliminated bias, and it's not made all decisions factual. So it has added a layer of complication. But it's also that's adding a layer. If you're watching, the television experience, then you watch all these decisions, all the replays for decisions, and everyone will have an opinion about. So there's not made us align more. Everyone still sees an incident in a different light, depending on if you're a fan, depending on your bias, depending on the many number of factors. So, but it has made the game. It has diminished the spectacle, but increased the drama. If you ask me to be succinct about it, and it's never going to be perfect. But the expectations that people had some people had when they added VAR and technology was that it's going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect.
So you still have human error, like the referee not taking the right decision. Because sometimes they just look at, sometimes the last match, 2-3 minutes, what are they discussing? You see the discussing with the VAR people, and I'm like, what are this?
Well, I don't do VAR myself, so I can only imagine the conversations. I never listened to a conversation, but they're discussing, perhaps, the lead up to the action. Say a handball. Was his hand in an unnatural position? Was it this? Was he leaning forward? Was it malicious if it was a tackle? There's a number of stuff because it's moving in real time, and even if you capture it on video, it's very hard to get some of the more subtle points. So that's what they're discussing, I would imagine. The last World Cup, the World Cup in Qatar, the VAR and subsequent time added on was a little bit ridiculous.
9 minutes.
9 minutes, 11
minutes. I even saw 140 minutes.
Yeah. But that is a commercial imperative because the sponsors of the World Cup want the full 90 minutes of play to actually happen because they want, and FIFA want more viewers. They want TV rights, but they want to get a result. Sporting integrity is a very important part of football. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. What development have you noticed in Nigeria and African football in general over time? Do you think any of the African countries might win the World Cup soon, especially with Morocco's outstanding performance in the last 2023 World Cup held in Qatar?
Okay, thank you. Well, as a Nigerian man, let me back Nigeria. I think that I honestly, seriously think that if we got it right in terms of coach and setup within the federation, selecting the manager, selecting players, scouting players, not allowing federal character and zoning. Zoning cannot win you a football tournament. Not allowing federal character and zoning and things like that. If we concentrate on excellence, then in the digital age, because a lot has also changed in terms of scouting tools, just to go back to your last question, I can see Nigeria winning the World Cup. It's not by prayer, it's not by juju, it's by actual, it's not just by prayer. Prayer would help. But we know Nigerians, we don't need help with prayer, so it's not by prayer. But with the right setup, the right team, the right leadership, and actually a coach, a qualified coach, because coaching is a profession as well. There's a technical aspect to coaching. There's coaching, like many other things, has different aspects to it. So one is communication, is a big part of coaching. The other one is technical. There are, game management, man management. So these things all affect that. But I can see Nigeria winning the World Cup. Like I said, Morocco, like you said, Morocco have come closest.
Yes.
But they have. If you look at that Morocco team that came closest, then this is another thing of the politics of football in Nigeria. The Moroccan team that came closest, I don't know what percent, a high proportion of them were diaspora Moroccans. They were born in France and Spain, like Hakimi was born in Spain, and chose to play for Morocco. There's no, in Nigeria, if you try that, they'll say, oh, these diaspora people, they don't, they didn't want to choose Nigeria. They don't understand Nigeria. They don't understand the culture. Me, I don't care. I don't care if if the player is coming on board and he's going to bring something to the team. Then he's going to make a net contribution.
Results.
I said it before.
Yeah.
Football is a results-oriented business.
Okay, yes. When I was talking to you before yesterday, this while with these foreign coaches, and look at what's going on with NFF. Today, Finette is out. The other guy, what's his name? Gbam. They're now talking about the great Samson Sessa coming in. So the first question, coming to that. So what do you believe? Foreign country or indigenous also?
I think we have to back our own. Are you seriously trying to tell me that in this day and age there's no Nigerian who's qualified, who has because the qualification, being qualified is where you need to start.
That was not the first question. Remember the first question I asked you? Like if an African coach, after even with the foreign coach, even with Oyibo, after every tournament, if they don't perform, they just put them out. It's wrong. So why don't they that rapport? I'm going back to this question, especially with the Nigerian, they don't treat them well. You see them paying somebody 20 million naira a month, for example, a foreign coach. The individual indigenous Nigerian coach, coach or coaches, you see them giving them 3 million naira a month.
Well, yeah, but that's the Nigerian way, isn't it? We don't really value our own to a very large degree. But I think the NFF needs to start treating Nigerian coaches as on an equal footing with foreign coaches. Clearly, Nigerian coaches are going to they'll be paid in naira, not in dollars. So there's a massive financial advantage to getting an indigenous coach. and the other advantages, they understand the culture. But the first thing must be, they must be in pursuit of excellence. You need a coach who wants to be better than everyone else. That wants Nigeria to be better than everyone else. So when it comes down to it, I always support Nigerian coaches. But in terms of getting if they appoint a Nigerian coach, they'll tell you, oh, he's only picking Igbo players because he's Igbo, or he's only picking Edo players or South players because he's from the South.
So they're picking Ijaw players because I'm a German.
Exactly. So you get, and that's another issue within Nigerian football, that, like I refer to it as zoning a federal character. But we should back our own. Yeah, we should believe in ourselves. Nigeria is a country with a population of 200 million, so we have some highly professional Nigerian coaches who have, the highest UEFA or American coaching badges. So are you seriously trying to tell me that in the 1960s, when Nigerians went to study medicine abroad, are you seriously trying to tell me that you wouldn't hire Nigerian? There was always a place for them back home. What's the point of sending your people or your children to go and do medicine, if you're not going to back them to and believe that they can and believe that they can do the job? So I think we need to back our own. I think the federation needs to. The NFF needs reform. It very seriously needs reform, which is a very simple thing to say, but it's not so easy to do. Yeah. You mentioned Fee, George, you mentioned Siasia, and you mentioned Gbam.
Yeah, because with the crisis between Osimhen, Benin City, or whatever, Gbam came in. It's now out. So now they are talking of a new person. Who had Samson name has been rumored, mentioned, So under 3 months, what's going on?
Well, because Nigeria has been searching for a coach since Jose Peseiro left. Yeah, so it's not this. Clearly shows not everything is working well. To touch on the specifics, so Osimhen came on and scored. So he answered his critics in terms of the best way for him to actually answer is on the pitch. That incident was, from what and it's all hearsay, so it's hard to be 100% certain of what happened. But they had a meeting with the minister. Yeah, you see, that's probably where the problem first started. They had a meeting with the minister, and it seems like somebody leaked back to Osimhen, said that, coach is saying XYZ about his players. He's probably talking about you. Yeah, that seems to be the impression that Victor got. I'm not entirely sure. Finidi has come out and said that he made a generalized point. He didn't talk about Victor. But Victor Osimhen has come out taking it highly personally. Yeah, because Osimhen was dealing with an injury at that time. Yeah. He actually got permission from the coach to not turn up in camp, and what Osimhen did was wrong and was unfortunate and wrong, and with all respect, I mean, not very mature. Not to take anything away from him as a player, but he's a human being. He's a young man, he's a 25-year-old man, in the spotlight. So he has challenges. It's new. He has lots of stuff to learn, and he doesn't have the luxury of learning in private. He does everything he does. It becomes a story. It's scrutinized left, right, and center. Finidi, from what I understand, what he said, just in general, he blamed the players turning up late for camp, and as far as I'm concerned, that, like I said, as a manager, you are ultimately responsible for the results. You go into the job knowing that. Yeah. So at some stage you have to say mea culpa, na me mess up, or I messed up in this way, or I could have done this better. You need to learn from situations. You need to learn from your mistakes. You need to learn from bad, when things go wrong. Not just learn from when things go right. So I haven't. I'm disappointed because I haven't heard Finidi say in any way that I was involved. I was there. I was a manager. It's my responsibility. But the way the NFF treated Finidi as well, again, something he went into knowing. He's worked for the NFF. He's worked for the current administration. He knows what they're like. He knows what goes on, right? He was an assistant to, yeah. So he knows what goes. So he knows what they're like. So it's apparently the NFF wanted to appoint a foreign coach or technical advisor above him, and he resigned. He decided to keep hold of his dignity and resigned. But you have to balance that with the fact that he knew what he was getting into. He knows the NFF. He knows what they're like. Yeah. Fish not a born foul, like I said. It's like talking about Austin. One more. Austin has done. He's got the results.
This is the third or fourth time.
Yeah, but look at what happened to him. The way Nigerians lambasted him, and look, I say there's something else I say. I say football fans are all crazy because it's not rational. It's not rational behavior. It's not rational emotions that it invokes. It invokes lots of high emotions. And Nigerians, we speak two things. We speak very loosely, and we like to blame other people. And we like to, I don't know. It's not revel in people's failure, but we can be very uncharitable in the way that we talk about people and the way we talk about Nigerian, the coach of Nigeria in anything they do. You can't satisfy them. Pissarro, who is a results-driven business, his performance as a manager was, I beg your pardon, his performance as manager was going to be assessed on how Nigeria did the AFCON. We came second. We were runners-up. Nigerians are still complaining that he played defensive football. Oh, this football is this football is that. Actually, he gave us, discipline back five. He played a five formation, 5-3-2. But he gave us that. He got a result, which was runners-up. Now, we want to eat our cake and still have it. We want someone to play attacking, exciting, sexy football. We want to eat our cake and still have it. While defense is the base that you build up. You build up a team on. You need the midfield for the transition, and strikers to score goals. So, but going back to Eguavon has got the results. So it's hard to. But he's a technical director of the NFF. And he has said that he doesn't want the coach job. He's technical director, so he's quite happy to do that. The pressures that come with being a Nigerian coach,
I'm telling you,
are high. It's but every country is different. In England, the most important relationship to manage is not the it's obviously the relationship with the management of the FA, your employers. Right, the relationship with your employers, it's important to manage. But the one that bites you all the time, that you really need to keep an eye on, is the relationship with the press. Because if the English press don't like you, then
you're in trouble.
You're in trouble. If the Nigerian press don't like you, then you're not really in trouble. But you really need to manage the relationship with the NFF
and the minister.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, let me just finish and say about Siasia. With regards to Samson, Samson's a friend of mine. I know him, but I'm not sure if appointing him would give the right impression. I hear he hasn't done any footballing activity in 5 years or whatever, however long his ban was. So he'd be a bit rusty. That's the first thing. The second thing is, he was found guilty of a very serious offence. He's done his time. I believe in forgiveness and rehabilitation. I said he was found guilty.
But if you look at it, it's his track record, silver, Olympics. We are just about well. Okay, look at that. Okay, who do you want to be the coach now? Who do you want them to put as Nigerian? Gbam just left. So
Gbam's not left.
He's still there.
Yeah, he's still there. He's most likely to take the next 2 games.
So
because the next 2 games are I think in November. No.
Okay, in your opinion, who would you suggest? Because personally, I feel apart from those things you said, Shashia with his track records would have been the best.
Well,
personally, I'm not speaking.
I look. It's hard to say. You're right. Siasi has a great track record.
Yes.
When he was, but it's about optics. It's about the message that Nigerian Football Federation is sending, and also he himself would he want the position?
We've not even heard from him.
Would he want the position?
For now, anyway.
Yeah, who knows? But I'm giving you my personal opinion. Yeah, that. If this was happening, next year, in a year's time or 2 years' time, when he's gone back into football, he's gone back into coaching, he's back in the flow of things. Yeah, then that's fine to see that happening. But he's not been allowed any football activity. Are you going to just take him and drop him straight into managing the Super Eagles? He may be a bit rusty.
Anyway, let's see how it goes. But we would suggest, yes, that's someone I know about. That's someone that's I think it's out there too. Amonike. We have lots of them.
I mean, if you ask me who would I like to be managing the Super Eagles, I think Emmanuel would he be my choice. It's too much anyhowness that we're doing in Nigeria. It's the typical anyhowness. That's what's doing the NFF. Nigerian anyhowness. Our football, the way our football is managed, is a reflection of Nigeria, like I said.
That's right. Thank you very much for this lovely, wonderful insight.